Hey, and welcome to another edition of Mental Health Now. Last week, we kind of started the talk about trauma, and I'm joined with Gary, Anna, and we're going to continue that conversation. I know this is a time where a lot of things have come to the surface, a lot of things have been erupted in terms of lockdown, and also the recent events of the couple of weeks. So we're kind of just delving into what that trauma feels like to be embodied, what even is trauma, all these big words, and kind of deconstructing it. So yeah, Anna, we were here last week dropping all your knowledge.
Thank you.
Where are we going to go this week, or what was your understanding from what people can take away from last week?
Good question. I think this conversation has been hopefully really useful, especially to give people some understanding of the mechanisms of trauma and what happens in the brain and the body when they experience traumatic events. And I think we kind of broke that down last week in terms of really helping people understand what trauma is, what it does to you. And we started covering some ground in terms of the things that people can do to start recovering from trauma and to start managing their emotions and the situation. And I think one of the things that I'm really passionate about as a psychologist is helping people understand how their brain works. And more importantly, like the brain is a vast network of interconnected parts that are organized to help you survive and flourish. And I believe that understanding how those parts work together is key, and it can really help people function more effectively. And sometimes we underestimate that understanding.
Yeah, well, just to play layman terms.
Yeah.
You said something, pardon me, where you said to me once, you said, you got to view your brain like it's a computer.
Yeah.
Right, so now I've used that a number of times with people, trying to help them understand their responses to things, their reactions to things, their unknown things that they don't know why things happen. And you said to me, they said, you just have to see your brain like a computer. And then you said, and then you said one other thing after it, right? And you said, and if you see it like a computer, then use it like a computer. So you need to learn how to get this part of it working instead of that part of it working and all of that. So just give a little bit of, explain that to me.
Yeah, absolutely. For example, taking on, if I can build on that analogy a little bit further, if your computer breaks for whatever reason, you don't call IT straight away, do you? Or if you do, they'll probably tell you that there's a bunch of stuff that you could have tried before calling them, right? Have you tried restarting your computer? Have you tried closing some of the applications, some of the tabs? Have you tried deleting some of the files that are taking up too much memory space? Your brain is very similar to that, and there will be a number of things like that that you can do to help either restart your brain or move some files over to some other parts of your brain that can help you function more effectively. So that's the kind of stuff that we talk about when we're having these conversations.
Because a lot of people would think that really, when it's all said and done, we're just products of what goes on in here, and we are products of what goes on in here, and somehow we've got to work out how to just live with it and manage as best we can. And I think for understanding that we can rearrange it and get things back on course is, I think, a really powerful thing for people to understand. And obviously, it's a faith-based conversation, and so there's so much. The reality is there's so much that the Bible reinforces about this type of thinking. So, all right, let's start. Anyway, I interrupted you just to explain. You were telling us what we did last week.
Yeah, no, I think that was it. I think we covered a little bit of what the role of emotions in dealing with trauma as well. And I think it is worth explaining again what trauma is. Trauma is not just an event. It's not just a situation that happened. It's the emotional and physical imprints, and I explained last week what I meant by that. The emotional and physical imprints of the trauma are essentially what's left of the traumatic experience, what's left in your body, in your brain, in certain parts of your brain, that essentially mean that after trauma, you experience the world with a different nervous system.
Yeah, wow.
And after trauma, every event in your day-to-day life is kind of like it's contaminated by the past.
Okay.
And that's what trauma is.
Yep. So next question, just on that, just before I want to launch into, all
Yep.
right, so how are we going?
Yeah.
So is there a difference between feelings and emotions?
Yes, and we talked about that as well last week, didn't we? Feelings are the embodied sensations that you experience as a result of processing an emotion. So there's a particular trigger, and after that trigger, you follow a series of steps, which is called the emotion process. Feelings are part of that emotion process, but feelings are really the sensations in your body, the physical responses in your body, like a tightness of your chest or the butterflies in your stomach
Yep.
that you experience before doing a presentation. Those are feelings. Emotions are part of a whole process that we also unpacked last week. The way you experience emotions, you experience them in 4 steps. Step number 1 is the trigger, the situation. Step number 2 is the interpretation of that situation, which we will probably talk about today, by the way, because it's part of the steps to recover from trauma. But that's called cognitive appraisal. It's how we interpret the trigger. Step number 3 is the feelings, the embodied sensations in how it feels in your body. And step number 4 is the responses or the behaviors, what you actually do. All of this is involved in emotions, generating emotions, and feelings are part of that process.
All right, okay, all right. So, something's happened to me, and that now, what's happened to me, it's like it gets locked inside of me. Gets locked in my brain, and it gets locked in my body as well, right? So it gets locked in. It's difficult in its lock-in. It's difficult to articulate exactly what that event was and exactly all of the detail of it, but it's there. It's a sense. It's ever present. I use the term contamination of my present.
Yeah.
That is something from my past that is now shaping the way I see life, respond to life, and is now shaping what my future is going to be as well. So this thing that happened all the way back there gets drawn always into my present, shaping my tomorrow.
Yep.
So now it's locked in here. Now it's locked in a part of my brain that is, it just gets locked there. It's this ever-present thing that's locked there. Everything now that use triggers comes my way and that part of my brain goes,
Yeah.
react. Now my job is, or what I'm trying to do, or what I need to do, or need to get help, or is I've got to work out how to get that out of this part of my brain, which is stuck somewhere in the middle towards the back.
Yeah.
And I've got to get it out of that part of my brain function into the executive function aspect of my brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, the front part of my brain, where I actually process life, organize life, unaffected by this primitive part of my brain. How? How do I get it out? I got to get it out.
Should we talk about that?
Right? Yeah. So I've heard, and when I say so, I've heard, and so I've said, right?
Yeah.
And talking to people, you got to get it out of this part of your brain and put it into this part of your brain.
Yep.
That it becomes an event of your past. It's a memory.
Yeah.
But it's not an ever-present memory.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think for some people, you can have this memory of your past, something had happened, and it just, oh yeah, I remember that happening, and that's it.
Yeah.
Versus that happened and it's still here.
Yeah, yeah.
I got to get it out into that part of my brain that goes, yeah, that happened.
Yeah.
And now, so what help? All right, let's put some.
Yeah.
How do I do that?
How do you do that? I think this is where it's really useful to have the right understanding of what you just said, because actually it reflects kind of the science behind it. When you say that trauma is stuck, locked in a certain part of your brain, and you feel it in your body, that is absolutely how we would describe the traumatic experience, the way you experience trauma. And again, I emphasize that what I mean by experience trauma is not just the actual original event, but also the memories of that event, or the flashbacks, or other things that trigger that trauma again. So what's happening there is we need to talk about a kind of a model of the brain that really helps people understand what you just said and give language to what you said, and then give language to the process of getting unstuck from that part of the brain. Paul MacLean a few years ago put forward the three-part model of the brain that I think really helps to understand that. And when we look at the brain in this kind of three-part model, we have the prefrontal cortex, which is the neocortex, the kind of rational brain. That's your thinking, logical brain. And that is the part of the brain that is, you know, we could call it the watchtower. It's the part of the brain that sees everything from above,
So
with perspective.
Yep. So when I get, I've moved away from that, and I've now switched off rational thinking.
Well,
And I'm now, what people say, you're being irrational, but I'm not. I'm now, I'm just functioning out of this part of me
yeah.
that I've got to.
You're functioning,
sorted out.
yeah. So you then, when something happens, there's a different part of your brain that becomes active. And that's the limbic system, or the emotional brain, which is beneath the neocortex. Now, the neocortex is the newest part of the brain. It's the last one to develop. The limbic system is kind of your emotional center of your brain. And at the center of the limbic system, or the emotional brain, is the amygdala. And the amygdala is kind of the fear switch. It's the fire detector. It's the
alarm system.
Yes, it's your brain's and your body's alarm system. And it will raise the alarm every time it feels a threat. That's not logical. What's important, and then there's the, I'll go back to what you said, but just to explain the third part of the brain in this third part model, which is called the reptilian brain, or the brain stem. It's the oldest part of the brain. It's the first one to develop, and it's, you know, newborns have the function with the reptilian brain. Basically, it's the regulates your heartbeat and your sleep, etc. It's at the brain stem. So those are the three parts. Now, the amygdala, or the emotional brain, where the trauma gets stuck, it gets stuck because what's interesting about what you just said, that, you know, oh, sometimes we feel that we're being irrational, or people tell us that we're being irrational. Actually, when we look at brain scans of traumatized people who've been through trauma, and there is some interesting research where you can look at brain scans while people are having flashbacks of the trauma. What you see in the brain scan is remarkable. The prefrontal cortex is completely offline. Wow. All the activity is happening in your emotional center of your brain. So you have your amygdala firing signals to your sympathetic nervous system to get the cortisol levels up, the heart rate up, to get you ready for a fight or a flight. And while all of that is happening, not only during the traumatic event, the original one, but also during the flashbacks or any other situation
Which explains
that triggers,
why my physical well-being is suffering.
Exactly.
Because of this excessive release.
Exactly, of
an
cortisol.
excessive state of
The watchtower's light's gone out.
Yeah.
So the watchtower's light has gone out.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because the watchtower sees it with perspective. The watchtower's job, the rational brain's job, is to analyze a situation, to predict possible alternatives and possible outcomes, to look at the logic, to assess a threat and go, actually, That's fine. I'm
give
not in danger.
perspective. It's there to
It
give
gives perspective, but it's offline when you're experiencing
So I
trauma.
lose perspective.
Exactly. You lose perspective.
Okay, so how do I how do I
How do you
how do I get
How do I get
perspective? How do I
How do you get
what are some, just some of the practical
Yeah.
the practical things, because coming back to I got to get it out of, right? And
Yeah.
I referenced a psychologist that I've been studying a lot of his work, and he did a book called The Body Keeps Score.
Yep.
And it's like it just hangs on to this thing.
Yeah.
And I've got to get it out.
Yeah.
And maybe we're talking about helping people, also about helping others.
Yeah.
Yes.
Helping others get it out, and it's and get onto just, hey, I'm feeling good about myself, and I'm feeling good about life, and
Yeah.
some horrible things that happen, but they're not ruling my life anymore.
Exactly. Which
So-
is the objective of
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
conversation, isn't it? So one of the things about getting it out, one of the things that the people watching at home might be thinking is that that's a lot easier said than done. Because when we say, when you go through trauma, you need to let it out of your system, you need to talk, and you just talk to me.
Yeah.
Just tell me.
Yeah.
Tell me what happened. And that's not easy, isn't it? And people will always say to you, so sometimes you hear people saying that they literally can't do it. They can't put it into words.
Which is what I think what people lose sight of in trying to get somebody to talk about something.
Yeah. The frustration.
Is literally you cannot remember it in detail of
Yeah.
this is what, because there's a certain amount of shutdown to protect yourself,
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
get it right, which means everything about the experience is not necessarily completely remembered because there's been a certain shutdown to protect.
Yeah.
Yet there's this ever-presence, I know, I feel, I sensed, it happened, can't articulate, don't know how to put it in words.
Yeah.
And often when someone starts talking like that, I think what I'm trying to get across is if you're talking to a friend or trying to help someone, that's okay because that's normal that they can't articulate detail.
Yeah.
And it's not like we've got more detail. I need more detail. No, that's as much as they've got. That's how it impacts you.
Yeah, they literally can't articulate it because when, again, back to the brain scans, what you see in the brain of people who are going through a traumatic experience is that there's a part of the brain located in the neocortex, which is called the Broca's area. And Broca's area is one of the speech centers in the brain, and that part of the brain is offline. Completely offline when you look at the brain scan. When they're experiencing trauma, that part is switched off. And that's why people literally cannot articulate with a sequence of events. They can't articulate that properly because that part of the brain is just shut down due to trauma.
And it's, if you sit there and I go, so if I say, no, I want to deal with something.
Yeah.
The pressure is not for me to be able to tell you, or here's my friend,
play-by-play,
that I have to give you step by step, moment by moment, because the pressure can be on to go.
Exactly.
But I can't. It's just better off not to talk about it.
Yeah.
But that's not the answer. I was better off not to talk about it because I can't articulate it. Articulating it is not the goal. Getting it out is the goal.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess like you said, it's twofold because if it's for the person that's holding on to that trauma, there will be frustration because you're saying, hey, let's speak about this thing, but it's embodied and it's not, I can't put language to it. And the person that's talking to the person that's experiencing trauma, again, especially if it's a loved one, you just want them to say so that you can understand, because there's empathy in the words that people use. But I guess there has to be a certain level of trust in that process, because it's like, oh, you've embodied it. I'm going to have to trust and understand that even when, Jesus says, renew your minds, repent, renew your minds, it's a process, isn't it? It's not just an instantaneous, like, oh, okay, I've got this trauma.
Yeah, well, that's what Paul talks about in Romans 12, be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think even, Christians, they don't necessarily, I don't think, repentance. So I've got to be sorry for doing something wrong, and I'm sorry, God, and I'm sorry, you, and I'm going to turn from that. And repentance is about embracing something new.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's the embracing of something something new. Renewing the mind is a process of your mind being renewed. Repentance is about grasping something other than what you had as a belief system. So, all right. So how do I begin to?
How do we do that?
Just
So,
some simple, practical.
Yep. Steps for people to take.
Tell me what to do,
Okay.
Dr. Anna.
Simple and practical.
notes.
Take notes. Yeah, it's the simple that I'm like, I'm now judging what I'm about to say. Is this simple enough?
Well, I'll try.
But you will,
We'll let you know.
will,
We'll let
yeah,
you
you
know.
will,
Well,
you'll let me know. You'll let me know.
Well,
So, emotional regulation. What does that mean? Just managing your emotions. Because, like we said, trauma is stuck in that part of your brain, the emotional center.
and that's the frustration.
Of
You
the
can't.
brain.
You feel like you can't manage
Yeah.
these emotions you're supposed to manage.
Yeah, which is incredibly frustrating
Yep.
because, like we said the last time we talked about this, everything in your brain is designed under the basic assumption that you have agency or self-control. Like you're able to control your own destiny. That's how your immune system works. That's how your nervous system works. Based on that assumption, it sees a threat. It assumes that you can do something about what's about to happen. That's the basic assumption of the brain. When that's taken away from you, that's when the brain breaks, right? So how do you recover from this? You need to understand emotions, and there are two ways to manage or regulate your emotions, two approaches, if you like. One is what we call the top-down, and the other one is the bottom-up. Simple enough? Okay.
I'm following
Okay,
so far.
let's unpack this. Top-down approach, let's start with that one. So what do you think I'm referring to, top-down?
Brain to body? I feel like I'm at school now. I'm like, I picked my answer.
It could be. Or if we go back to the three-part model of the brain, right? What's at the top? The very top, the prefrontal cortex, which is the rational brain. So if we think about what we can do to get our watchtower back, our perspective back, how can we do that? Because we can't just, it's really difficult when it's actually shut down because of trauma. So how do you bring it back? There are a couple of things that can help us create a pathway between our rational brain and our emotional brain. One of them is what Stephen Porges calls interoception. Interoception is like internal perception or self-awareness. Now, that's why mindfulness is so important. And the last time we talked about this, I briefly explained what mindfulness is, which is just being purposefully focused and aware
Purposely
of
present.
exactly what's happening in the present, right now, within you, around you. That's what mindfulness is. And that's why it's so important, because it's being aware. Now, it's hard.
So, because, right, just to go simple, right?
Yeah.
Because part of the problem is I can't be present.
Because it feels too difficult, right? It's too painful.
Or
present.
because this is contaminating my present.
Yeah.
And at the same time, because of the primitive part of the brain, the emotional, I'm now all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't concentrate on this. I'm not going to concentrate on that. I'm going to do this, but now I can't do that. And so we're all over the place. And so mindfulness is about going, stop being all over the place.
Yep.
And just go, somehow I've got to get in control of my inability to focus on one thing. I'm focusing on everything.
Exactly.
Right, so just a couple of things because if I was if I can use it real simple, just because we're not sitting here as medical doctors talking about a science paper. We're talking to people going, all right, help me. Right?
Yeah.
So what are just some of the tips to go, all right, I have to get present with
Instead of-
all of this is going on. How do I stop being ADHD, which I've got ADHD. I'm not belittling that, but that's what people just throw away. Oh, yeah, I can't concentrate.
Yeah.
Well, that's right, you can't. So we're not talking about people who that, but I just can't sit there without thinking, oh, now I'm here. Because if I can't get control of the present.
Exactly.
So what are some of the
Yeah.
things on that?
So really just channeling your attention, focusing on what you're feeling right now is the first step. But not trying to manage it, just noticing what you're feeling. I'm not, again, feeling in your body. Let's not go emotions, sadness, No, just the feelings. And notice the physical sensations that you're experiencing right now. First step. Just everything. And if you can't get yourself to do that, maybe you might be feeling a tightness of your chest, for example, because there might be a lot of sadness bubbling up with the recent event, or anger with everything that's happening in the world right now. So try tapping your chest. Sorry, microphone. Sorry. Try tapping your chest and notice how that feels.
Now, this sounds right.
It sounds simple, isn't it?
This sounds weird and simple.
Yeah.
You cannot tell me that this is going to fix me, right? Now, this would be. I know. It's a loaded question because that's what people say. However, all I want to say is it works.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as simple as it sounds, and what's amazing is it's so simple it's within our means.
Yeah.
And at the same time, because it's so in our means, it's like, I've got to dismiss that. I've got more complex problems than that.
But actually, this is where the fact that people underestimate the value of these simple things is really sad, isn't it? And it's why we're having this conversation, so that these really important things are not underestimated. Because what doing something like that does is, like I said, it really opens up the pathway between your rational brain and your emotional brain.
Which comes back to your computer.
Exactly.
That you're pushing reset, or you're turning something off, or you're turning something on.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it's doing.
Deleting the tabs.
Exactly.
Deleting all the tabs, just resetting and resting.
That's exactly it. And once you're doing that, and once you allow yourself to notice what you feel, how it feels, and you're okay with that, instead of rushing to judgment or rushing to, no, I do, because we know that traumatized people are scared of feeling because it hurts. So you rush to either suppress or you don't want to go there. But actually, if you allow yourself, and remember that there's a transient nature to emotions. They come in waves. They come and they go.
Yeah.
So that's what this exercise does. It brings your watchtower back. Why? Because you realize how something feels, you feel the pain, and then you feel it go away.
Which I know it sounds like, once again, the whole thought of, be still and know that I'm God.
Yeah.
Be still. There's
Yeah.
that ability to be still.
And after you're still, you know that he is God.
Yeah, but the action of stillness is an action as well. Because I think people will think, oh, I'm being still. Oh, it's like you have to step into stillness. That sounds like a paradox, but it's like I've created space. You always, especially in London, like everything's so busy. You need to take a step out, embrace the Sabbath inside yourself, and create that space so that you can feel. Because sometimes, especially with this season, everything's going so quickly, like in our lives and blah, 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 that you don't actually create an oasis for yourself to even know what's going on. And then you're just piling things on things on things on things. Whereas exactly what you're saying, like when was the last time you took a step to just hold your chest? It sounds so simple to put your hand on your chest and be like, what am I even feeling today? Like even 10, 15 minutes of just being in a space closed off from the world to actually hear what your body's trying to tell you. Because it's almost like working backwards, isn't it? It's like the core is the emotion and behind that is the trauma, but you kind of have to make your way. What am I feeling? Okay. What are my emotions telling me?
Yeah.
Okay. What was this triggered like? But you have to start somewhere.
Yeah, and you have to start You have to meet the thing where it's at.
Yeah.
Literally, it's in the body. It's stuck in the emotional part of your brain. That's why you need to start there. You need to go there. And actually, the second approach. And there's more to say to the top down, by the way. But just to link to what you just said, the bottom up approach, which is starting with the emotional brain going up.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it means. The second part of what you could do there is actually there's only a couple of things that you can do to access your emotional brain in the moment very quickly. One of them is through breathing, and that's why we talked about breathing last time. The other one is through movement, and the other one is through touch. These are the three ways to access your nervous system and your emotional system, and very quickly. So the heart-focused breathing technique that we talked about last time, which is essentially during that mindfulness exercise, you focus your attention on, breathing in through your nose, imagining the air flowing through the area around your heart, very slowly breathing out through your nose. And as you exhale, you stop and you reflect on what the air is doing to your body, nurturing your body with energy, all this stuff that you're doing there is actually switching off your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight. It switches it off. Actually calming down your heart rhythm patterns switches off your fight or flight response mode. Wow. In the moment. It's the quickest way to calm down. The other way is through changing your body, so moving. And light aerobic exercise, for example, like when people are feeling like they're carrying the weight of the world, or they're feeling really, really stressed, or whatever. Really walking, swimming is very good as well. So really light, but generating some movement, changing your body actually helps as well to access. And the other thing is touch. And that's why really when people are, in a crisis, and sometimes people say, oh, I feel like I just need a hug. You do. Really. That is literally what your brain needs right now.
COVID-19, can't hug. Can't touch.
We can
Which
high
is
five.
why, it's all happening.
Okay.
But when you speak about touch, is that the premise of? Is it like a communal thing? The touch? Is it like an invitation to someone to embrace that with you? Do you know what I mean? Or is that just a physical?
It's both. It's a physical thing, actually. Touch really does help. It's one of the if you need to calm someone down very quickly, someone who is in a panic state, in a fight or flight state, and they can't breathe, they can't do any of the other things. Sometimes you may have seen in movies or whatever that sometimes slapping people in the face actually does it as well, but let's not go there. Let's not go there. But really the kind of the physical touch can really help flick the switch. But especially if it's charged with the kind of safety that comes from, a real kind of relationship with someone else, because that's the other thing that the brain desperately needs to heal from trauma is safety and connection, real connection.
That's a follow-on.
Yeah.
But just come back to I got to get it. It's okay. Or I get. I got to be still. I get. All right. I need to take some time to myself. I've got to get a little bit in touch with what it means to be still, and that's really all that breathing thing is doing. Is helping me get in touch with being still. So okay. So now, what then? What other things are? What other things are in my? Within my means. To say, all right, now I get what I'm doing here. I'm getting in touch. I'm just gonna. I want to get this out of me. I want this thing not to be ruling my life anymore. Or if it's not ruling, at least I'm going to rule it.
Exactly.
Instead of it ruling me.
Exactly.
So what are some of the?
The other things. Do you remember last time we spoke about this, when I explained the process of emotions, and I said that step 2, we need to go back to that because it's really important.
Yep.
This is the time to go back to
Yeah.
it. So step 2 in the process of emotions is cognitive appraisal, which is interpreting situations.
Cognitive, what's that?
Thinking. Cognitive is
So
thinking, rational brain.
Thinking, my thinking, as a man thinks in his heart.
So, yeah, so bringing that back.
So it's, I've got to get my thinking I've got to get in charge of my thinking. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Cognitive. It's like a cognitive. What is that? My thinking processes.
Exactly. Rather than letting it just stay offline, there's something that you can do to bring it back. And that's about, in the moment, being able to strengthen that ability to bring the watchtower back is in that moment of experiencing a trigger, and how you interpret that situation is really key. And I'll explain what you can do
So
there.
just on the thing, because we're now in step 2, right?
Yeah.
We've got to get in charge of our thinking. Sometimes very easily dismissed, right? Because it seems so simplistic. I think where Paul says, think on these things. Think on things that are noble. Think on things that are this. Think on things. And yeah, that's good. But this is so much linked to our mental well-being. Where we actually got to be intentional about thinking on things. Because we so easily think on the wrong things, especially when it comes to trauma-based things, because it's dragging thinking from the past and all of that into our present. And we've got to be actually intentional about the things that we're going to say. This is my thinking always goes to this, so I need to start thinking on these things. And that's what Paul says, think on these things. So
how does that work?
Is that what we're talking about?
100%. That's what we're talking about, and that's where emotion science can really help, because again, we're talking about emotional brain creating a better balance between the emotional brain and the rational brain. That's what we're talking about, and being intentional about setting your mind, your focus, your attention onto something rather than the trauma. This is where how do you practically do that? You punctuate your day with as many positive experiences or emotions as you can. How do you do that? Now, it could be through different things, because again, it's not that easy to just channel your thoughts in the moment of trauma or trigger, to channel your mind onto something positive. That's almost impossible, we saw earlier, that that part is just switched off. So how do you do that? There are a couple of things that help activate that kind of positive mindset. One of them is images, actually. The visual cortex is incredibly powerful in capturing the attention of your brain and capturing the attention of your rational brain in particular. What's interesting about the visual cortex is that it can be activated, obviously, through images. So really, no joke, whatever pictures, whatever makes you smile, genuinely have a picture of that on your phone that you can look at to get a really warm and fuzzy feeling, whether it's puppies or babies or whatever does it for you. But the good thing about the visual cortex is that it can be activated through stories as well, through metaphors. Anything that creates an image in your brain activates the visual cortex. And it comes very charged with that kind of positive or negative thinking and feeling. And the reason why this is important is because emotion science has discovered that positive emotions create a pathway between the rational and the emotional brain.
So recently I was in something I was studying, and they went into talking about this it's all got to do with compassion and being compassionate towards others and all of this. But the interesting thing that it talked about, which is what I think you're saying here, is you've actually got to be compassionate toward yourself first before you're going to learn how to be compassionate towards others, right?
Yeah.
So in this thinking and this of visualizing, thinking on things. What they were talking about is to think on certain things. Now, because Paul says, think about whatever's noble, whatever's this, whatever. It lists them.
Yep.
Right, and then you go look at these pictures that makes you evoke an emotion. But what they said was taking it one step further is think about a moment in life, because trauma is about a moment in life that has polluted you and really wounded you, bruised you. Think about a moment in life that makes you feel good about yourself.
Exactly.
That someone else has done towards you.
Yeah.
So it could be, something that your kids did. You having kids. For some people, having kids is just a nightmare, because there's nothing good comes out of the kids' mouths towards them. And you think about, but there is.
Yeah.
There's something that your child has said to you. There's something that you might be in conflict with your husband or your wife or friends. Or think about something that you remember.
Exactly.
That is an experience that made you feel just good about being you.
Yeah.
Which is the complete opposite to trauma, because trauma is all about something's happened to you to make you feel unbelievably bad about you.
Exactly.
So so am I on?
You're absolutely on.
Right.
And in fact, to build on that, if people are watching at home and they are, they've been traumatized, get a journal and write some of these questions down. Just do it. Can I think of a time when, someone said something that made me feel really good about myself, or when I achieved da-da-da-da, or can I think of a time when I overcame this limitation? If you're watching this at home and you're trying to help someone, think of these questions to ask, because the most powerful thing that you can do for someone is to ask these questions. Because again, questions are the other thing that switches on your rational brain.
Yeah, because when you're in this situation, you're not thinking about how good you are.
No.
This is what's happened to me, and now look what this is what I've done out of my reactive self, and this and that. So you're in beat up mode. As opposed to, no, just think about something good about you.
Yeah.
It's like, even when it comes to, God's love, God first loved us. So his love come toward us before we're even.
Yeah.
So these thoughts that are noble, and it sounds so simplistic that people just disappear on it, except in stage 2 is you've got to get your cognitive thinking.
Exactly.
And you've got to arrest it.
Exactly.
And the way you arrest it is different thoughts to what are going on.
That's it. That's it.
And meditation as well, like you were saying, it's like these daily meditations, like learning verses, like empowering yourself throughout the day. Like C.S. Lewis says something really cool in terms of like, you need to know where you stand in 1,000 conversations before the war. So it's like preparing yourself to be like, hey, I'm gonna live this and embody these truths and this positivity and this hope, because I know that you don't want to be in the moment being like, I need to know all these things about. It's like, okay, I'm in stage 2 now, and I know this verse is life-giving for me, and I know his word is life-giving, so I'm going to tell myself that over and over and cling on to the truth that God loves me. My foundation and my source is in Christ.
Yeah, and I'm not a bad person.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mainly.
Exactly.
Because sometimes I think that, all right, I can get my head around God first loved me, but I'm having trouble with myself.
Yeah.
Yet and that's the cognitive thinking that's gone off track.
Exactly.
But you've got to get that back on track by going, there will be things, if you think about it,
exactly.
it puts a smile on your face.
Yeah.
That you have had interactions with human beings that have made you feel good about yourself in the right sense, not your ego getting a bit of a G up, but in the right sense to go, you know what, that just made me feel good about myself.
Exactly.
Think about, it might only be one thing in your whole life.
Yeah.
But there'll be more than one.
Yeah.
But the one thing in your whole life, even if it's one, there will be more than one. Yeah. And just think about that, because this is about switching the computer
exactly.
into a different mode of operation.
Yeah. And so different really practical ways of doing that is, again, it's through questions that will help your brain suddenly, because even if you're feeling really bad about yourself, if someone asks you this question, your brain will automatically search for an answer to the question. So that's why having really good questions is so important to help people, or to ask yourself. So it's questions, it's the kind of the images of those moments, those things. It's making a conscious effort to have positive experiences and to experience at least a range of positive emotions every day. And this is actually really important, even through, especially during a crisis. Positive emotions are like nutrients, and this is all about, this second step is all about having a good diet of nutrients, of positive emotions. The benefits of feeling positive emotions don't just happen in the moment, they happen in the future, and it depends on how many and how much you experience positive emotions in your life. And these are things like joy, interest, curiosity, or hope, which is a really interesting emotion. It's the only positive emotion that only exists or thrives in negative contexts.
Wow.
You need to be in a bad situation to experience hope, but it's one of the most powerful emotions when it comes to what it does to this that we're talking about. So, things that help restore hope
okay, but
are
just
really
even
important.
that, just for the sake of, so unpack hope.
Yeah.
Right, because people go, I'm without hope, or I've got hope, or I'm hoping, and we talk about how important it is.
Yeah.
But it's about a mental construct, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So,
hope is different from, for example, optimism, or, there are a few other constructs that people get a little bit confused when it comes to what hope actually is. Hope is being very aware. It's a mixture of realism with optimism, if you like.
Yeah.
Hope is being very aware of a negative circumstance and yet yearning for the best outcome. That's
and
what hope
believing
is.
that there is a better,
Yeah.
there is a better
Yeah.
tomorrow
Yeah.
than the present that I find myself in.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that's what I'm talking about. The construct. I can construct
Yeah.
something, and that's what the whole grounded in faith becomes so important.
Absolutely.
That because as much as bad as the world is right now, Revelation 21, I think verse 24 says there'll be a day where there's no more weeping, no more pain, no more sorrow, no more violence, no more hatred, all of that. And even if that was all I'm hanging on for, that's something worth hanging on for.
Absolutely.
And it's this sense of I can look forward and go, I can see better than where I am right now.
Yeah,
that-
and that's what hope is, and what that does again to the brain and to all of this conversation that we're having. There's a great book by Jim Collins, Good to Great, and he talks about the Stockdale paradox, which was based on Jim Stockdale, the admiral from the U.S. Army, and he was in a Vietnam concentration camp, and apparently he has all these incredible quotes and things, and one of them was linked to hope, and he was saying that even in I definitely can't remember the exact quote, but the idea of it is that, the one thing that you cannot afford to lose is hope. And that's what kept him going, and that's the one thing that we know from a lot of research with trauma survivors and people who've experienced the worst of the worst of the worst possible kinds of trauma, that hope is the thing that really is able to keep your brain going. Your brain needs that. It's like a nutrient to keep it alive, keep it going.
Well, if you don't think of futures that, like you said, Gary, if you don't believe that a future ahead of time is going to be better than the present that you're in, there's no rope to pull you out of the hole that you're in. And the hope is that rope that pulls you out of your situation, because you're like, there is a potential future that is better than where I am. So and without that, you're just going to be in the same space on loop.
Yeah.
And the things of God perpetuate into positivity in the future. They give life. They're like restoration, their renewal. So we have to, like you said, this foundation to our faith is that hope for tomorrow is going to be better than today. And in those stage 2, you really need to cling on to that rope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So in that, right? So all right. So I've got to get my head together.
Yes.
Which is that's what cognitive thinking is.
Yeah.
Like it's just
That's it.
And there's an element of no matter what's going on, where my mind is running, racing with, running to, all of that.
Yeah.
I can just take what seems to be overly simplistic, and I say because that's what people go. That's just too simple. Yeah, but do you do it? No. Well, if you ask a person who's not struggling or who has, you ask them what do they do? Well, I do that. What, on purpose? No. Well, I sort of just do it. It's not programmed, but I've learnt how to look for it and see it.
Yeah.
And so it's just it's a normal response, the way their brain works.
Yeah.
And if you're stuck in this, you've got to get into your new normal mode of operation is
Exactly.
Yeah.
my brain's looking for good things
Yeah.
as opposed to I'm always thinking about bad things.
Exactly.
And so I actually have to get it functioning how I need it to function.
Yeah.
So I've got to start thinking about, I'm okay. People, think about the things that people have said to me, love me, whatever it might be. Think about things that make me feel good.
Yeah.
Think about visual things that
Yeah.
put a smile on my face.
Yeah.
It's trick. If I put it, it's like switching your brain from operating here
That's it.
to operating here. When it operates here, you start finding,
That's
you
it.
start seeing, and suddenly the world is a different place.
Yeah.
You see it as a different place
Because the watchtower is back on. You've
Right.
switched it on.
All right, so just...
Do I have time for one more thing?
Yep, all right, yeah, all right. All right. Then I've got one last thing, yeah.
One last thing. So the top down and the bottom up, we talked about a few things that switch the fight or flight and the amygdala off so that the watchtower is on. Another thing, actually, is serotonin. Can I say that? It's not a rude word.
You're allowed.
Serotonin, it's a neurotransmitter and a hormone, and it's called the happiness hormone. It's very important when it comes to our mood and helping us feel good and in all of these things that we're talking about. And again, this is where most people probably, again, switch off and go, oh, this is too simple. No, it isn't. Serotonin is directly linked to the amygdala being reduced in terms of its activity. In fact, higher levels of serotonin have been positively correlated with dampened amygdala and fight or flight and stuff. So it's super important. Simple things that we can all do to increase our levels of serotonin without any medication involved. Good diet. 95% of serotonin is produced in the gut, in the intestine. So it's actually really important to be eating really well, especially in a time of crisis when things are not, when things are not feeling great. Sleep, again, light exercise, and feeling like you have great relationships in your life, because serotonin works in combination with oxytocin,
which is where I was going to just take it when you talk about relationships. But even with serotonin, there's a link between me actually getting out of my own head, meaning my own, what's going on, and stepping into someone else's life and saying, instead of it being all about how I'm feeling, I'm going to actually think about how you're feeling. I'm going to actually engage your life. I'm going to do something for you that is selfless. And the moment I end up in selfless behaviour, it flicks something in my brain that releases all this wonderful chemicals that shuts down that part of my brain I'm trying to switch off, and suddenly someone just gave me a happy drug. Just by doing something for someone else.
Exactly.
Right. So take it one step further. All right. So on to the next step. Right. So we talked about relationships, the importance of people.
Yeah.
And I read I wish I could remember where I picked this, what books. I can give you my library and work it out. But
It's a reading list.
just simple statements that you hear things that
Yeah.
just you go, whoa, people only get that, right? And I guess one that I picked up, which is not the most important one for now, was that people don't have addiction problems, they have connection problems.
Yes.
So it's got to do with your connection with other people,
Yeah.
not your addiction to something, which is usually, the unfortunate thing about, the world we live in. We just love to punish people for the symptoms of something.
Yeah.
And so let's punish people for their addictions rather than say, now, why is the addiction there? And the addiction is there. And I'm pretty sure I'm up with modern
Yeah.
research on all of this, is fix the connection issues and the addiction issues take care of themselves. So then the next statement was, which seems harsh if you're struggling with mental health, is you don't have mental health problems, you have life problems. And most of the life problems there's events. Life problems come from the things that happen to you,
Yeah.
the things that you've done, or the people in your world.
Yeah.
That's usually that's usually the source of life problems. You've done something dumb and the consequences come your way.
Yeah.
Someone has transgressed against you and you're carrying the consequence of it.
Yeah.
Or you've got relational fallout and it's now affecting you. So the human connection is really important, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So how important, if we're just finishing up on, let's talk about friends, people around us, friendships.
Yeah.
How important is that?
They really are the lifeline, especially when it comes to recovering from trauma. Any research that exists on trauma recovery mentions this aspect as probably one of the most important ones, if not the most important aspect of healing, which is safety with other people, true connection. The traumatized, the broken brain needs to be in real relationships, in real connection with other humans in order to heal.
What define real?
Oh yeah, real is not, it's real friendships. People that you feel deeply connected with, people that you know, you will experience what we call biobehavioral synchrony, which is the technical term for what happens when two or more human beings, pardon?
You're bonded.
Yeah, really bonded when you experience real connection with someone. You actually have this biobehavioral synchrony, which is that your biological rhythms get in sync. Your brain starts getting into sync in terms of your neural firings. There's a neural mimicry. We start firing neural connections at the same time.
Wow.
And actually your heart rate gets into sync as well. This is real connection that you only experience with real friends that make you feel safe, that you know that you're safe with.
And I think especially, you cannot, the disconnect. So now we're talking about people who are struggling with mental health issues.
Yeah.
In a time where everybody has been forced to disconnect. Or they've realized they are not connected anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So it's I would see it as one of the greatest things that we can really look at is the quality of friendships.
Yeah.
And the friendships that we have with people. Don't have to be friends with, I always say if you've got 200 Facebook friends, you've got 200 friends. You've just got 200 Facebook friends. And we haven't got enough emotional space for 200 friends.
No.
Very small handful is probably all you need.
Yeah.
But, maybe I'll just leave it with just this on friendship. It's, Jesus talks about, he goes, there's no greater love that someone can demonstrate, essentially is what he's saying, than to lay your life down for a friend, which is a fascinating concept, because I think for a lot of people they'd say lay your life down, where it's made, if I'm friends with Rocky, it's like, well, I'm prepared to die for him. Oh gosh, I don't know if I've got that type of friendship. You mean I've got to die for this guy? And that's how people will interpret that. But I think the what's behind what that's meaning is we can be friends and you can trust me with your life.
Yes.
And I can trust you with my life.
Yeah.
So the moment I'm now beginning to open up, or I want to be a friend that wants to help somebody, I have to take this position of, I'm a friend who can be trusted with your life, which means all the garbage, whatever that is, or all of the, like, I just don't understand, all of the stuff.
Yeah.
You're saying we need people in our lives that you can just trust them with your life, because your stuff is your life.
Yeah.
And they're not going to do something with it.
Yeah.
And I think one of the greatest needs, I would say one of the greatest needs that we all have, and a need for everyone to be, is, can you be trusted with someone's life?
Yeah. It's a great question.
Can you trust your life with someone? Are you someone who someone can sit down and go, whoa, here it is. Can you be trusted with it?
Yeah.
And you know, we live in an age, and we live in a world where everything about anybody is out there for everybody to look at. We feel the pressure that everyone should know me, but no one really. I'm just telling everyone about myself. I'm not trusting myself into anybody's hands to help me with things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think there's this challenge to dial back this. Here I am. Here it all is, or I'm hiding behind things, and go, come on, can we just really get into being friends that people can trust their lives with, and that you've got friends that you can trust your life into their hands. And the Bible says, you know, he who wants friends must first be seen to be a friend.
Yeah.
And that's part of the challenge is there's an element of proactivity
Yes.
that one has to take to actually move forward. And at the same time, because what we believe, there's an element of proactivity where it's like, hey, I want to reach out and I want to say, how you doing? And when I say how you doing, I mean how you doing.
Yeah.
And it's okay, you can, I've made a decision that you can trust me with your life.
Yeah.
The importance of that.
Yeah. Wow.
Awesome. All right. Well, okay. So that leads us into discussion 3, where we move forward. But just can I just say, if you're watching this, and this is all about trying to bring understanding, gain understanding, and give some as we've talked about, what can seem to be just super simplistic things to do. But I want to just challenge you to do them, and you'll be amazed at what happens. And also, you know, we're faith. We've got faith in the person of Jesus Christ. We have faith in the workings of the Holy Spirit in our lives. And you know, in Luke chapter 4, when Jesus said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me; He's anointed me too." He goes on and talks about a number of things that he says, anointed me too. And one of the things he says is to heal the brokenhearted. A broken heart doesn't mean my boyfriend dumped me or my girlfriend dumped me or whatever. It means I've got bruised insides.
Yeah.
And that's what trauma does. It bruises us on the insides. And he says, he anointed me to heal. I want, you know, there's all the things we're talking about. And there's the believing in what the Holy Spirit can actually bring, the healing of Jesus Christ in that. And remember, he said he'd give us a peace of mind and a peace of heart, something that the world can't give us. World means the world systems, man, all of that sort of stuff. He can give us something. And so don't give up hanging onto him and bringing all of this before him and putting all these sorts of things into practice. So, yeah. So trust in him. He's an amazing person.
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.